The study of what is the ultimate reality, or what is the nature of reality? What is what is this world that we live in, and who are we in it, and what is the actual situation that we're in? Many of the sages have said very startling things like there is no internal external, that there is only internal. And Swami Vivekananda is famous for saying, when somebody asked him about Alameda, California, where he was at, he made the statement that I am not in Alameda. Alameda is in me. And this notion that there's no way of validating an external world is quite a startling thing to say. And of course, those of you who have heard some of our talks and discussions on the channel are familiar with that whole example that I give, where, even experientially, we can know this, not just psychologically or not just as an academic point. But when you think about it, when you listen to something, that sound enters your ear and it vibrates a drum, probably, possibly. It enters the ear, and that sound itself never actually makes it to the mind. What the mind gets is an encoding of information from the ear, presumably. And I'll tell you in a moment why I say presumably. And then the mind actually creates a symbol for sound. And so we don't hear things directly. That sound actually is completely stopped. It comes to the ear, gets encoded. We don't hear anything else any farther in. All we get is that information. And the mind takes that information and creates the symbol of whatever it is that you're listening through to. And it's the same for all of our senses. All we ever really truly experience directly is sensual encoding, nerve information. And the source of that nerve information will say, oh, it's the eye, that gives me light, or it's the ear that gives me sound or whatnot. But when you sit and think about it, we really don't know where that information is coming from. The ear is just as much a symbol for the source of sound as the sound itself, and the eye for light as the light itself, because light also comes in the eye and stops at the back of the socket there. It can't go through bone. It hits those cones and becomes encoded into information. And that information again goes to the mind, and the mind then decodes that and creates a symbol for light. So you've actually never seen light. You never actually know what it looks like. You just know what your mind's symbol for light looks like. And, beyond that, it goes even, you can sit and ponder these things, and it gets more and more fascinating the more and more you stop assuming things and start looking at really what we know and what we don't know. It's quite fascinating. And the fact that, I don't know that my symbols look at all like your symbols. There's not really any way to determine, what I see as blue. I don't know that you see the same thing as blue. I don't know if your mind has created the same symbol as mine or not, because we've always pointed at the same thing and said blue. So we've agreed whatever it is blue, even though if I was to get into your mind and look at your symbol, I might say, hey, that's not blue, that's like a pink orange. What? And they would see my symbol for blue and they'd be like, yeah, that's what I would call dark yellow. And so it's a fascinating thing. And I bring that up because I was reminded this week in that same store that I was in the other day, where they had these posters of these wonderful quotes on them. And one of the ones that I saw up there was by John Muir. And John Muir made this statement: the sun shines not on us, but in us. The rivers flow not past, but through us, thrilling, tingling, vibrating every fiber and cell of the substance of our bodies, making them glide and sing. The trees wave and the flowers bloom in our bodies, as well as our souls, and every bird song, every wind song, and tremendous storm song of the rocks in the heart of the mountains is our song, our very own, and sings our love. It's interesting, that last line there, it sings our love. Because if you look at the ancient teachers of the Vedanta, the philosophies from the East, they say that the ultimate nature of this that we experience is what they call Sat Chit Ananda, which is that wisdom, being, and love or bliss, and that's the nature. And so, yes, indeed, what you live in is a projection of your own mind. You don't actually live in a material world. And you say, oh, that's nonsense. How can that be? Well, consider it. Think about it. Ponder it. Come up with your own arguments for and against, not as a whiplash reaction, but as a pondering. There's no threat in observing what we know and considering how deep it might be or how true or false it might be. To consider that. Consider a dream at night. The details of that dream are amazing. You could go into that dream and there would be a wooden table there, and you would cut that wooden table off and look at it, a little slice of it under the microscope, and it would look like wood all the way down to the molecular level like it does in the waking world. And yet, is that what it is in the mind? No, not at all. It's made of mind stuff, dream stuff. That is something we don't know the source of. We don't know what it is in and of itself. The ancients made up a name, but they said that name was only a pointer. It wasn't the thing itself. They called it Brahman, which in English we would just say something like God. That it's a universal substance that has become all things, and that the ultimate reality beyond Satchitananda, beyond that love, wisdom, and being, is one without a second, something that has no boundaries, no divisions. It's a singularity. Fascinating ideas. I just share them for you to have some fun. Stop living in a box, pretending that we know so much and that we understand so much. To become thinkers. Maybe work in characters more than 240. See how deep we can go.